Welcome to Amplify Your Mindset with Ricky Kalman. Motivational speaker, mindset expert, and celebrity hypnotist Ricky Kalman has amazed audiences around the world. Kalman empowers his audience with simple but powerful techniques to boost confidence and belief toward their goals and to exceed their own personal and professional expectations. Each episode features business leaders, motivators, and incredible individuals who share how mindset has contributed to their success. Put awareness and action into your life with the confidence that you'll succeed at the things you want to make happen. Here is Ricky Kalman.
Hi, this is Ricky Kalman, and welcome to Amplify Your Mindset. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you subscribe at the end of this program. Today's guest is Joe Koenig, president of Worldwide Technology. Joe started with Worldwide Technology in 1993 with roughly around 15 employees and $8 million in sales. In 2018, they did $11.3 billion in sales and have roughly around 6,000 employees. As president, he directs and manages all sales, marketing, business operations, and professional services. He is responsible for managing relationships with key business partners and customers while setting the overall strategy of the business. Joe Koenig, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Great being here, Ricky.
Well, I know that you are a very busy man running a very big company, so I truly appreciate your time and talking to myself and letting our listeners hear a little bit more about your story and your journey. First of all, Happy New Year, and thank you again.
Happy New Year to you and to your listeners.
So, as you heard from the intro, here Joe is running a massive, over 6,000 employees worldwide company, $11 billion in sales. I'm going to jump right into this. You're doing amazing. I mean, things are fantastic. You've been with the company 25 years, and every year you guys are exceeding your expectations. You're growing. It's unbelievable. And then January 2017 happens and life changes. And before you go into the story, what I want my listeners to understand is Joe's going to give you a background of his journey. And there's a lot of information here, and it's going to get heavy. It's going to get heavy really, really quick. But I want you to stick with us because there is a silver lining to this. And if you just sit back a little bit, listen to this, listen to the compassion that he has, and you're going to hear where he's going to go with this. It's an unbelievable story. So, Joe, jump right in. Let's talk about the journey, how it started in 2017.
Yeah, 2017 was not one of my better years, I have to admit. But as you'll kind of listen, you'll hear what I think there's some very strong positives out of this as well. But I guess I'd start out by, saying that even before 2017, I was having challenges with my tongue. And I went to the doctor, and he said, hey, you should have that checked out by ear, nose, and throat person. It could be something suspicious there. So this was back in even early 2015. And after multiple visits to the ENT and a biopsy, everything was fine. But I still thought it was getting worse and worse throughout the 2015, early 16. And then probably mid to late 2016, it was extremely worse, and I went and I was getting steroid injections and to really diagnose as just a sore or a lesion in the tongue, and it never got any better. And he said in December of 16, if this is any better, I am going to do one more injection, and then we may have to rebiopsy. So it didn't get any better in January of 2017, and I had another steroid injection on January 5th, and then he rebiopsied as well. And then so January 7th, I went on a family vacation. And on January 9th, I received a call from him while on vacation. And it was not positive. It said, Joe, I can't believe this, but, you have cancer. I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh. So now, meanwhile, my first thing in my head was, which I didn't even mention yet, I was in the last 3 months, I was in testing to give my brother one of my kidneys because he had a polycystic kidney disease that he was on dialysis and he needed a transplant. So through the last 3 months, I've been doing testing to give him one of my kidneys, and it was the surgery was to be scheduled in early March. Everything was positive. and they scrubbed you pretty hard on through those tests, and everything was great. It was going to be scheduled, and so now I get this diagnosis on January 9th, and now I have to tell my brother that I can't do it. So kind of a double whammy. And so I'm sitting here on family vacation. I'm thinking, all right, no one knows. What am I supposed to do? I'm 2 days into my family vacation, and I have another 5. I said to myself, I'm not going to, spoil everyone's vacation here. So I didn't tell anybody for 4 days. So I just kind of kept that inside, and I knew I was scheduled for a CT scan and a PET scan when I returned. And so I said, well, my goal on that trip was to have no one know what was going on, because I didn't want to ruin everybody's vacation. So kept that inside. And then on January, I'd say that was a Monday. On Friday, I decided, maybe I should tell my wife while she's there. I said, hey, let's go for a walk on the beach, and we'll just chat, get caught up on some things. And so I'll tell you what, Ricky, I was so nervous to tell her.
I bet.
It was like I was proposing to her. That's how nervous
I cannot
I was.
imagine. I cannot imagine what was going through your mind, because now you've kept this up, for the last couple of days, being on vacation, literally, and now it's time to talk to her about this.
Yeah, it was tough, and that walk, like I said, my heart was pounding, and so I talked to her, and obviously she was very upset, and we walked for a long time, but by the time we got back to our boys, it was better, and we actually had a couple laughs, but then the whole journey began, because as soon as I got back, I had to have my CT scan, my PET scan, and then while I was going through this kidney transplant to have my donate my kidney, I developed a relationship with a top kidney doctor at Barnes Jewish Hospital, and he immediately said, you're going to see the top person at WashU that deals in head and neck cancer, and I want you there on Tuesday when I got back. So I went to this top person, and he goes, wow, what happened to your mouth? I'm like, well, I just was told it was a lesion. And so he goes, well, I can tell you right now, it's absolutely cancer by looking at it. So we have to do an immediate surgery and resect part of your tongue. I'm like, well, okay, like how much? And he goes, well, probably anywhere between 25 and 30% of your tongue. I'm like, what? I said, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, hopefully that's it. He goes, but I'm not sure. We'll have to. He goes, I may put you under and look and find out, I may have to wake you back up and say this is a lot more than what we thought. But kind of long story short, they did the first surgery, took out 30% of my tongue, and the 7-day pathology came back and said that we didn't get all of the cancer. And I'm like, oh boy, what's in store for this? He goes, well, this is what we're going to have to do. We're going to take out, probably 50 to 60% of your tongue, and then we'll have to then do a skin transplant, take skin from your forearm, and then transplant that with an artery that we harness from your arm and put that in your mouth, and that will take the place of where we're resecting your tongue. And obviously, it's not movable. There's no feeling. There's no taste, but it'll give you a better chance for better speech. I'm like, okay, what's that entail? He goes, well, so we also have to take out your lymph nodes on your right side. You'll come out of it with a trach, a feeding tube through your nose, massive, kind of cut from us taking your lymph nodes out, cast on your arm from the skin transplant. He goes, you're going to be messed up. There's no doubt.
They didn't paint a good picture there.
No, and there was a resident that I was talking to at the same time, and I had some fun with her. I mean, you just have to have I just know you just have to have an attitude, a little bit more of have a little fun with such a horrible situation, that we kind of went sparred back and forth on some things. But it was trying to make light of such a tough issue. But so it was tough, and I was in the hospital for about 10 or 11 days, and came out of it just just like hit by a truck type thing. And so the big thing was that hopefully if they don't find cancer in the lymph nodes, then all right, that's it. I'm done. No radiation, no chemo, and so forth. So, But while I was still in the hospital, 7-day pathology, which I love 7-day pathology now, came back and said, unfortunately, we found cancer in your lymph node. I'm like, ugh, all right, what's next? And at that point, I couldn't talk. So I was writing everything down. So I'm like, well, what's next? He goes, well, I'm going to recommend to the tumor board that we do radiation, and we'll determine if we have to do chemo as well, based on the size of the tumor inside your lymph node and the tongue. And I'm like, I'm just like, I'm still in the hospital. I'm drugged up. I'm like, oh, this is great. So went home. They decided on radiation. And that we were going to wait 6 weeks. And so going home in that condition was very, very difficult. I did find some ways to try to get the healing faster. I mean, I would do little things like walk from one, area of the house to another area of the house, 15, 20 times, just to get the blood flowing,
Sure.
get some things moving. And I would try anything. Just I went outside and walked with it. It's kind of weird when you're walking outside around the neighborhood and you have a feeding tube out of your nose and cast on your arm and people are looking at you a little funny. But it was important to get out there and start doing something. And so that was one of my first kind of forays into pushing myself a little bit regarding this journey. And then, we went back to the doctor and said, all right, radiation starts, in late April. And it's, depends on, some people take radiation very well, some people don't. But, and the radiation I had to do was, I mean, you were pretty much locked down flat on a table with a mask over your head, and they're radiating your mouth, your tongue, my tongue, and my neck. And you can't move. If you're claustrophobic, you're pretty much hosed on this one. And the interesting thing about radiation, they said, well, the good news is you get to pick your own music every treatment. And I'm like, whoa, that's awesome. So I made a very good point of picking a very interesting playlist. When you think about one day I'm in a mood to listen to AC/DC, and the next day I'm listening to Frank Sinatra, then Phantom of the Opera, then Coldplay. So I mean, the people will always be interested in what's on your music list today. And as the radiation kind of wore on, and it got very, very difficult for me. It was hitting me pretty hard where I couldn't swallow anymore. I couldn't drink water. I couldn't even have pudding. And so it was a determination by my doctor. I was losing a lot of weight, and that we're going to have to reinsert a feeding tube through your stomach. And just have to see how that goes and try to keep your weight at a certain level and have, so many calories, so many fat grams, so many carbs, sugars, and everything, just to keep my weight
Sure.
at a certain level. It was just taking a beating on me. I lost my speech again. I couldn't speak anymore because it hurt so badly. And that was a very, very it took me, in my opinion, to the brink. Very, very difficult to deal with throughout that whole experience. And plus you're on, every drug, that you have oxycodone, fentanyl, hydrocodone, lidocaine. They had this magic mouthwash to soothe your mouth because my mouth was completely burned from the radiation. It was very, very difficult. So then it was coming out of that after the 33 radiation treatments were done. And then you have another 2 to 3 weeks of radiation hits. That's just from the radiation itself. It lingers for 2 to 3 more weeks, and then recovery from that, going off the drugs, and so forth. A lot of difficulty throughout that whole piece. So that was that part, and then
And at this point, okay, so this all started January 2017. At this point right now, where are we?
the last radiation treatment was mid-June, but the post-radiation trauma probably lasted until mid-August. So it was painful all the way till mid-August. I got my feeding tube out in mid-August.
Okay,
So
so
that's still using
eight months now into this, and now we go into September. Is that, and
Yes.
one more door, opens up that you didn't want.
Yeah. Unfortunately, throughout that whole process, my mom was at that time, 89 years old, and she saw me through this entire kind of ordeal, and she was sick, but she knew what was going on throughout that, and I kind of kept her kind of in a loop and kind of not. but careful. She caught me a few times on trying to take light of it, but she knew that there was a lot going on. But so when it was over, and I went over her house, and still, I mean, it's still difficult to talk, but I spent some time with her in late August. And then she took a major turn for the worse. And, it was a Sunday when I went over there and spent 2 or 3 hours with her, and she died that following Saturday. It was a very, very difficult time for me coming right out of that and jumping right into that piece. And it was something I'll never forget. But I think I felt so obligated to say something and do the eulogy at her funeral, even in I was a little worried that people wouldn't be able to understand the words I was saying, but I just fought through it, and I'll tell you, it was probably one of the most difficult things I think I've ever done, was dealing with what I was emotionally, mentally, physically, and then have that think about what I had to say, how I was going to say it, will people understand, and then try to portray the right message about my mother. It was difficult, that's for sure.
And I hate to even say this, and then you had more tragedy.
Yeah,
I hate to even bring this up, but I know the timeline. And again, I don't want to turn off people from listening, but please stick with us here, because if you can tell already, Joe was a very interesting guy that has fought through this. And okay, just jump right in.
Yeah, it was so through that whole time, my father passed away back in 2000, but one of his remaining brothers, my uncle Jim, was very, very close to me and my family, and became like a kind of a second father. So we spent a lot of time with him. He was diagnosed with lung cancer several years ago, and beat it, and was in remission. And then throughout, when, say, in the latter part of the summer of my journey, was diagnosed with another recurrence of lung cancer. So that was devastating for him, going through what I went through. He was part of that. And now to have to go through what he had to go through personally, and then me being part of that, my wife being part of that. And then even when I was able to drive in August, I would be driving him back to his radiation appointments, which was so weird, by the way, because I just finished, now I'm going back and taking someone. And then for him to then pass away in November was again very, very difficult, and something that I'm like, man, through what I've been through, then my mom, then my uncle, man, I'll tell you, this has been one heck of a year. I'll tell you that, to say the least. So very, very difficult emotionally, and always tried to find the positives in this, but I'll tell you, it was getting more and more difficult, that's for sure.
That amazes me. I mean, as you're just telling the story, how you're able to stay on track and stay focused and not give up.
Yeah, I'm telling you, sometimes it's not simple, but I had a lot of help throughout this, and I think that that type of help is what gets you through it, and you have to have that right mental state, as well. And I focused on it a lot. I prayed on it a lot, and people were there for me all the time. So that definitely helped get me through some of these situations. And that's what it was interesting. I did then in January. I spoke at our global sales meeting, and people were I was gone for 11 months, and people obviously were asking me, how you doing, how you feeling, what was it like, and so forth. And I thought, well, before I get up and go through our go-to-market strategy and where I think we're heading in 2018, why don't I spend 10, 15 minutes on my journey? And I did that, and what I tried to distill it down to is really 4 words. If someone had to describe my journey, every journey is different. It would be my 4 words. Would be, the first word would obviously be difficult. It was, like I said and mentioned here, the most difficult thing I've ever been through. It took me to the brink, and just having to deal with the pain, the suffering, the lack of sleep. Having to sleep sitting up for months, and dealing with the drugs and all the stuff you had, the surgeries. It was very, very difficult. So I would say I wouldn't want my worst enemy to have to deal with that. So difficult was the first word I talked about. I think the second word that I would say is humbling. it was, humbling to hear the first line that says, "Hey, you have cancer." I mean, so humbling. Humbling to feel completely helpless, um, and someone having to feed you through a feeding tube or having to give you a shower. You had no control. It was so humbling there, and even humbling to sit in a radiation room, waiting room, and look across the room when I feel so terrible. And you see a 10-year-old boy in a wheelchair that's bald with his mom hugging him, and I'm thinking about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so humbling to see that. Um, and then even humbling to, when I was getting a feeding tube put in, they put me in a radiation prep room before my treatment, and it was a waiting room for people who had tests that would have the results. I'm thinking to myself, at that time I couldn't speak, and I'm like, this is not going to be fun if someone comes in here and has a bad result. And so, lady comes in there, and the doctor comes in and says, I have the results, and they're crying. I didn't really hear it. I'm like, oh, this is absolutely horrible. But it turned out it was a miracle.
Wow.
She had a very large tumor 4 months prior. They went through some immune therapy, and her latest scans showed her that tumor is gone. So I witnessed like an awesome miracle. And I always remember the look on those people's faces, the doctors and nurses, and the results of what happened there. It was so humbling to be a part of that. So things like that to me meant so much from a humbling perspective that I just will never forget. So that's the second word. The third word is blessed. And when I said this at our global sales meeting, I know people immediately said, geez, that doesn't sound like you've been blessed, based on what happened to you. And my immediate reaction up on stage was, I'm blessed because I'm standing here talking to you right now. And other people aren't or can't. And so for that, I am majorly blessed. And I would say the other second reason I'm blessed is that I had an absolute awesome support system. And that support system started with the faith side of it and the power of prayer, of what people provided for me, what I did and was part of. It was something very, very powerful in my mind. And the second one was family. I had just my wife was an absolute angel. She'll be canonized as a saint before you know it, for what she had to deal with me and be there with me, stand by my side, sit and lay by my side. She was just absolutely unbelievable, and I couldn't ask anything more of her. She was just awesome. And my three boys were there for me, my other parts of my family. And then even my friends. One of my best friends is the CEO here at Worldwide Technology, and I roomed with him in college. I played soccer with him in college, and he was there every day when I needed him. He was in helping my wife. He was in the hospital with me. He took me to radiation sometimes. He took me to get fluids in the hospital sometimes. I mean, he was there when I needed him, and for that, I'll never forget what he did for me. So between the friends, the family, and driven by faith, I mean, I couldn't be more blessed in terms of that journey. So that's the third word. The fourth word I used was something that I thought was very interesting through this journey, and that was reflection. Not being able to speak for a period of time, your other senses kind of hone in, even though you're on drugs. But the senses of hearing and seeing and just observing in general was just really something to be part of. So I reflected a lot on different things. And when I was at home and struggling through the radiation, I would always go on walks. Even though I'm not supposed to, even though the doctor said don't do it, it was my escape from reality. I would go out, put music on in my headphones, and take my dog, and I would go for a walk. And I would walk, and it's like Forrest Gump in the movie where he'd run. I used to walk,
Yeah.
walk. And my poor dog took an absolute beating that summer. There's no doubt. And so it was just something that gave me time to reflect on the past, on the present, on the future, what I wanted to do, what I could have done differently, and I think that was something very, very important. It was a whole piece of reflection. And then I thought that when a friend of mine came into town, and he was a person we had worked with as a sales consultant, and he and his wife came in town. He goes, I want to come in town. This was this past June. I want to ask you some questions about your journey. And it was about your reflection part. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to. So he comes in dinner, sit down at dinner, and he goes, all right, I have a Jeffersonian question for you. I'm like, all right, I don't know what that means. And he goes, let me just ask you this. What was the one thing that you didn't know before that you know now? He goes, you spoke about reflection. What's the one thing you didn't know before that you know now? I'm like, and he told my wife, he goes, Kim, I want you to answer that question as well. I'm like, Kim, you go first. I'm like, I still have to think about this.
Now you're
I
curious.
I haven't had a sip of wine yet, so I'm like, all right. I said, let me think about this. I said, I'll go. I have it. And he goes, well, what would it be? He goes, it's going to be one thing. I said, well, I have a lot of things. One thing. I said, well, maybe I'll cheat a little bit and tell you that that one thing would be it reflects or impacts so many different things. I would say the one thing for me that I didn't know before that I know now is the definition of unconditional love. And he goes, whoa. And he goes, well, I need to hear a lot more about that. And I said, and I told my wife, I said, Kim, just bear with me as I kind of walk through this. I said, because, you do your vows of in sickness and in health and all the different vows you have. And I'm not sure you really know what all that stuff means until you go through something like I went through and what love and unconditional love really means. And when you see someone doing things for you with no expected return, but they're just there for you, whether it's your, in this case, my wife or my boys or my friends, that meaning I'm not sure I really understood like I understand it today. So that would be my answer to that one question. So that type of reflection I thought was very, very important as part of my, healing journey. And it's something that's, I thought something I'm going to continue to think about as we move forward.
Joe, and this is when you guys had this dinner. When was this?
This was in June.
June. And you gave this presentation back in January.
Mm-hmm.
And reflecting on everything, I remember our call a couple weeks ago, this pre-call before the podcast, and we went through a lot of the story, and you gave me a timeline. And I remember, as you're going through this and telling me this, every time something happened, you would very carefree, like, say, but wait, there's more. I mean, it was just, you almost chuckled as you were trying to ward it off or push it away with some laughter. Is that fair enough? Is that kind of the way you were about things?
Yeah, I did. I mean, at some point, I mean, you can only be so down. I mean, you have to have some levity to the situations. I always tried to use laughter or humor to help, me through or someone through. Maybe that was, say, my wife, have a crack a joke here or there, but I did. I use I use humor, maybe sometimes, maybe not in the right spots.
Well, I was fascinated. I mean, here you're telling me the whole story, and I'm like, "But wait, there's more." And could it get any worse? It did. And I'm going to open the door again because here you are, January, back at work, gone 11 months. Is that correct?
Yes.
And something else happens in January, and I know listeners are probably, no, you got to be kidding me. And I remember you telling me, "Wait, you were diagnosed again with something else."
Yeah, it was. That was kind of out of the blue. Of course, a small percentage of people who have radiation in their mouth get impacted by this diagnosis called ORN, which is osteoradial necrosis, which basically means the radiation is killing your jawbone. And so, when I was on stage at our global sales meeting doing that pitch I just spoke of, at that time I had a major infection in my mouth, and my whole side of my mouth was swollen while I was trying to talk. It was interesting to say the least, because when there's 1,300 people there and you're on the big screen so people can see you, and as I'm talking, I'm looking at the big screen, I see the big swelling in my mouth. I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. So I quickly turned the other way and try to remember what I was trying to say. But it was interesting nonetheless. But yeah, so this is what happens when radiation impacts your jaw, in my case, and start killing the bone. And so they have to then prescribe some type of, in my case, they put me on some protocol that would try to save the jawbone by, 25 pills a day of bone growing pills with antibiotics, with calcium, with a bunch of other pills for that matter, and try to save that jawbone. And then, it may have worked for a little bit, but, over the summer, this past summer, I had multiple infections that happened. And so I had to get a root canal, and which hurt, by the way. And then
That
went
hurt.
to, yeah, I'm telling you,
That,
I
wait a minute.
I'm like, hey, I thought you said I didn't have any nerves there. For not having any nerves, this really hurts.
I don't know.
But so, and he's laughing. He goes, I'm just telling you, I'm not sure how you're feeling. Well, I'm just telling you, I'm feeling it. And so he goes, all right, well, let's see. And then I got an infection soon after that. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what, we can see by your scan that your jawbone is continuing to erode. So we probably have to pull some teeth. And in order to do that, we're going to have to put you in a hyperbaric chamber, which is just 100%. They pump 100% oxygen in this chamber and pressurize it so that blood flow reaches parts of your body that it
Promotes
typically
healing. Sure.
Yeah, promotes healing. So I went to 30 dives. They call them dives through this. I just finished in early December, and so now I'm kind of in wait mode to see if they still want to pull these teeth, and shave some of the jawbone off. But at the end of the day, the goal is to save the jaw, so I don't have to have a jaw replacement. That would be a bummer. So it's more stuff that just happens. You just have to look at it and find the positives. What do I have to do to get through it? All right, let's get through it. And what's next? And let's focus on, all right, I'm good right now. There's nothing going on. I'm going to enjoy what I have right now. And then I'll see what's next on this journey. But for right now, I'm going to be positive and mentally strong until something else happens. I'll deal with that when I have to.
Oh, well, okay, we're stopping right there. I mean, we're going to say there's no more open doors. There's no more information, right now. Nothing new is happening. You're living life. Your mindset is truly inspiring, and that's how we were introduced. A friend of ours reached out and said, "You got to meet Joe. You just have to." And he said to me, he goes, "I'm not going to tell you his story. I can't even begin to do it justice. He is going to talk to you about it. He's going to go through everything with you. And then you're going to hear it in his voice. You're going to hear how he speaks, that it's going to blow you away." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure. I'd love to talk to him." And we had this phone call a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, "You got to repeat all this." I said to you, I go, "Yes, come be on the show. Tell the story." Because as you tell the story, and I hear about your feelings, I hear about what you went through. Nobody can imagine. I mean, nobody can imagine, what's going through your mind. But what an inspiration how you, even on your worst days, and I can't imagine your worst days. How you were able to, what's that?
There were some bad ones.
Yeah. But here, your attitude, your focus, how you were able to pull something out of this. And I said there's a silver lining. I think, again, they're a reflection of, well, let's go through it. The 4 words that you talked about on stage, being hard, or it being a really hard task, humbling,
yep.
blessed, and reflection.
Yep. Yeah, those were 4 key words for me, and that I'll never forget. And the part that I said about the support system with the faith, family, friends, someone gave me a good friend of mine gave me a bracelet, a wristband that was at the time they gave it to me, I didn't even understand what the colors meant and what the words meant. Colors were burgundy and ivory, and the words said, "No one fights alone." And when I received that after my first surgery, I put it on my shelf right next to where I keep my wallet and keys and so forth. And then after the second surgery, I saw that, and I'm like, "What does that say again? No one fights alone." I'm starting to really understand what this means right now. Mm-hmm. So I have never taken it off since. And the colors are for head and neck cancer, which is my cancer. And so I'll never forget the "No one fights alone," because it is so prevalent and better understood now by me based on what has to happen as you have this journey. You need that support system. Those people will guide you through. Your faith, family, and friends will guide you through all the troubling times and help really coach, mentor you, and foster you through these tough times. That's for sure. But yeah, I would say then too, Ricky, is that to have that, and it kind of goes to your podcast. You have to have this mental fortitude behind you, this mindset that drives you every day. I mean, I looked at things. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. Is that when I woke up every day, we all have choices, right? Every day. Am I going to be a good person? Am I going to be, because I'm frustrated, I'm angry at what's going on? Am I going to be mean to my caregivers or, my family, whatever? I had a choice every day. And I was focused on, hey, even though this is going to be a journey, this is going to be a climb, I'm going to try to be the right person through this climb. And that was one big focus area. And there are things that I had choices on that I, clearly made. And I'll give you one was my oldest son was graduating from college in May, right in the middle of this radiation. I needed a feeding tube. Doctor said, I'm going to pull you in for feeding tube. You're losing too much weight. And I said, my son's graduating on Saturday. I'm not hitting the feeding tube because I'll miss graduation. And well, you're going to be dehydrated. You're going to get sick. I'm like, what do I need to do to get through this? So I had to go through. I went every day for 4 days to the hospital to get fluids, IVs, because I did not want to miss that graduation. I was not going to have me look back and say that there had to be a way to see this graduation. So I was so sick at the time. I remember sitting in the audience, feeling absolutely terrible, and they're doing the finance diplomas. He's in the business school. I'm like, all right, he majored in marketing. How many different diplomas will be between F and M? And so, because I'm like, I'm going to get sick any minute here. I'm going to try to get sick before so I don't miss it. So I think they were in something in the H's. I think it was an HR or something. And I'm like, all right, I'm running. So I went and, got sick. And I made it back for his, and I saw him graduate, walk across the stage. Those are decisions that I think we have to make mentally, that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to see it through. And so from a mental fortitude side, that was very, very important to me. I don't want people feeling sorry for me. I don't want to feel sorry for myself. I am going to try to have this mindset that drives me to see the other side, and that was a big, big part of it.
If it's okay with you, I'm going to recap your mental fortitude, and there's about 5 that you just mentioned. We have a choice every day. You can't win every battle. I'm getting my life back. It's truly about the climb and getting to the other side. Do I have these right?
Yes, absolutely.
And learn something every day.
Yep. Those were
these are your words. These are your thoughts, and I'm so grateful to be able to talk to you. I'm so grateful that you're sharing this story, that you're humbled by this, by taking it, and you've repeated it. I mean, you've had to repeat it continually, and you're not getting tired of it. I hope you're not. I hope you're not getting tired of it, because I think in the end of the day, and I asked you about this off air a couple weeks ago, talking about this, does it help you every day?
It does. Not only talking about what I went through, but what other people are going through. Understanding their pains, their positives, and how they decide how to handle certain things, or what their support system looks like, offering some ideas on both sides for that matter. Yeah. Two-way street. And I'll tell you, it does. It helps me. It helps me, one, to help others, but it also helps me to listen and observe others as well, because it'll be those examples that help drive me when maybe something else happens to me in the future. But it's very, very important. In fact, I would kind of say one last thing too that I think is very important to me is, this one part about, I always like to try to measure what happened as well and what the results will be. And I read a book, I'm sure you're probably familiar with it, by Bob Buford, called Halftime. Mm-hmm. This was a book I read 6 months before this happened to me. I loved about turning success into significance. I'm not sure I knew what that meant in terms of what it means different. I should say it means a lot different to me now than it did before. But I have an opportunity now that, yes, in whatever my definition or your definition or other definitions of success is, once you reach that, You go into the halftime and figure out what's on the plan for the second half. And so, obviously my plans have changed. I didn't realize I'd be in the situation I was in when I read that book. But knowing that, I've been given a huge blessing. And like the Bible said, to whom much is given, much is expected. I've been given this blessing about having felt things and see things and hear things I'm not sure I ever would have had before. Knowing that I have that blessing, how am I going to move forward with that and really do good for others? So that's a big, important message and results that I'll continue to focus on.
Joe, you reminded me of something too. I mean, we all have kind of these routines of our daily activities. We go to work, we take care of our family, we go shopping. I mean, these are routines that we constantly build habits with. Some habits that we do, we're just not, maybe not so aware of them. We just do them automatically. It seems like you have this constant drive to become better every single day. And something you made me realize too is that when I get up in the morning, I try to think about, and I didn't realize it until just now, because unconsciously, what's my purpose today? And I have to have a purpose in the back of my head. What am I going to do today? And strive to become really good at it, no matter what it is. And you reminded me of that, of their story and of what you do. And I can't thank you enough.
No, I appreciate, telling the story, because it does mean a lot to me. And if I can help one person and that one person helps others and try to be a multiplier,
yep,
that's the goal.
Well, Joe, again, thank you very much. I look forward to having you on again in the future, and keep inspiring the people, and have an amazing day.
No, thank you. I really appreciate being here.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of Amplify Your Mindset. For those of you that would like more information on the Sitement Cancer Foundation, go to the website foundationbarnesjewish.org. That's foundationbarnesjewish.org. This link will be on my website, rickykalman.com. Look for this podcast. I will definitely put all this information and a hyperlink to the foundation. Thanks again for listening. Tune in next week to another episode.
You have been listening to Amplify Your Mindset with Ricky Kalman. For more information on Ricky Kalman's corporate and personal development programs, visit rickykalman.com.